Hello and welcome back to the Sell Like You podcast with me, Harriet Meller. And today we're diving into a deadly advantage in sales, which is speed. Now, I'm going to share some real life examples. I had a coaching call this morning, which has inspired this podcast episode, nothing like running it on the fly. And the reason why I want to talk about speed is that I want to break down how speed impacts, because we want to be speedy without being, lazy, or without it lacking personalization, or without it feeling too fast as well. So how do we win? Like where is the line, and how do we build that into our process so it's repeatable? So if we do it for one, we can do it for the next, and we can be known as that, extremely responsive, person in the market. Now, when I first came to Australia, which was nearly 11 years ago now, I remember saying, and I said these words exactly, was that people seem to be really astounded by the fact that I just did what I said I was going to do. Now, I think that is something that is definitely an advantage, but it's something that is so simple and I would say easy that we're missing a trick. Like if you're not delivering on what you promise, then what's the point? Like just don't promise stuff. And if you think that, if you say I'll get it done tomorrow and you never do, give yourself another week and then you'll just exceed expectations. And I remember saying to somebody else that I feel like everybody in Australia thinks that I have got like my knickers over my pants, a bit like with like Superman. I feel like I'm Superwoman with knickers over my pants, and I've got a cape on and I'm doing these great things, and all I've done is reply to an email within the same day. All I've done is that I'm going to do something and then I've actually done it. And they're like, wow, who is she? Where did she come from? How did she do it? And, it's really that simple. Like I wasn't doing anything that outstanding at the time, according to me. So I would say it was just one of those things that I did. Now, speed plays into that, because if I am doing something that's if I'm saying I'm going to do something and I need to act on it, we need to be faster. Like we need to have speed at the forefront, but we need to have the ability to be, to check everything, to make sure that what we're sending through is good enough, to make sure it's of a high quality, because we can be super fast and crap, and that's not going to win. Whereas if we need to find that balance within there, however, the thing that we can do, or the things we can do really quickly, is we can be quick in responding and actioning with information that allows us to have a bit more time. Now, just bear with me. Let me explain what I mean by that. Is that if I get an email in my inbox that says, hey, your sales co, we're looking at, some training, or we're looking at lead development, can you share more? If I spend a day coming back, so I'm going to do some research, I'm going to look at their website, I'm going to see who I know, I'm going to do all that good stuff. If I didn't reply and did all that, and then I was like, hey, thanks so much. Like, that was great to hear from you. Here's all my information. They will just think I've just waited for a day or 2 days or 3 days to get back to them. Whereas if I go straight back and say, thanks so much for your inquiry. And by the way, I could automate this. We don't, but I could. And thanks so much for reaching out. So great to hear from you. And this is definitely, up our alley. This is definitely something that we could support you with. Sounds like a really exciting opportunity. Whatever language I need to use, give me 24 hours and I'll come back to you with something else. Or it would be awesome to have a chat. Whatever the thing is, if there's going to be a delay, let someone know there's going to be a delay, but tell them quickly that there's going to be a delay. And this comes back to a lot of the recommendations I make with the people that I coach and train, is that communication is key, and speedy communication, especially in today's era. I think the requirements of being faster and just getting there is that, you send an email and you want a response straight away. You send a Teams message and you're like, have they looked at it? We are in that generation, in that era where speed is everything, but it also means that we are having to be reactive all the time, and we can't, we shouldn't be being reactive all the time. So when we are communicating and we let people know that what we're doing in the meantime is this, and this is when you're going to get the thing, then we tend to have a better response, and they will put you in a higher viewpoint because you've given them that information. They don't mind waiting a week. Don't assume they need it today or tomorrow. Find out when they need it by, and then manage expectations based on that. But coming back to them when somebody has an inquiry and you make someone wait a day or 2 or 3, or say, that sounds awesome. Yep. I'll come back to you with a proposal, and you don't send something within 12 hours, 6 hours, and we haven't told them it's going to be otherwise. Am I waiting a day or am I waiting a week? Should I follow up or should I just go Google somebody else? And this is the risk. And this is why I said it's a deadly, instance is speed. And it's because we've got so many things to do. And when we find something that we need and we go and Google it and we've reached out, we've done the inquiry and then nothing, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep searching. I'm going to keep finding other people. I'm going to keep asking. And what will then happen is that the person that gets back quickest will often win, even if they're not the best, because they've come back in a timely manner. They have given them the information and they're ready to make a decision. They're like, let's go. You guys can start Monday. Let's go. So there's so much that goes into it, but we need to be able to be quick, but we need to have the systems in place, or the processes or the templates or the guides or the tools in place that we can do it. So the client I was coaching this morning, he was sharing about somebody that he'd gone back and forth with for a prospect. They were pushing on price and he held strong. So well done. I definitely recommend to do that. I think maybe I should go dive into a bit more around discounts and pricing, maybe on another episode. But he'd come back and forth and he'd stood strong on his pricing. The client or the prospect at that time wanted to reduce pricing based on a 3-year verbal agreement. It wasn't prepared to sign an agreement. And so he held strong, which is awesome. Fully support that decision. What then happened was that he did a follow-up, came back round again. And then the guy that had originally inquired came back and said, we'd like to go ahead. And when he asked for the reason why, he said that he reached out to other people and they either didn't get back to him or they waited for a long time to get a proposal back and just didn't feel that the onboarding or the experience of going through that prospecting phase was an inkling into what they were going to get, and it wasn't great. So although speed, yes, was one thing because he was able to get back to them really quickly and was proactive and followed up and engaged and checked in, the others didn't, but it also gave him an opportunity to see how others are operating and therefore gave a reflection of what was to come and made a decision to go with somebody else. So that was how my client won that deal. So it just shows that buyers want fast answers, not necessarily perfection, but it needs to be of a high quality and it needs to reflect what you're going to do once they're in and working with you. Now, when we're looking at these quick responses, is that it gives us that perception of reliability. And as I mentioned before, even the quick, hey, I'm working on it. Hey, I'm in a workshop today, or I'm doing this. I'll be back on it tomorrow, is all we need. And I find a lot of the great operators that I work with, because I've got lots on my plate. I've got lots to do. And if I'm making a phone call, I need an answer and I need an answer now. And I'm really impatient. And so, then I'll quickly text, do you have 5 minutes? Can you let me know this? When can I chat to you about this? If somebody comes back to me and then says, I'm free at 2, give me a call then, cool, park the thing, come back, and then I can then get going again. So it just gives you examples here that it doesn't always have to be the now. It doesn't always have to be, quick with the answer, but we need to be quick with the response to say, yep, I'll come back. And this is how long it's going to be. Now, if we're building a speed culture in sales, we want to have a process. Now, I am notoriously bad at taking leave, like I always have been. And I think that for me was being in sales for so long and also being in a smaller team for sales where I didn't really have somebody that I could lean on when I went away. Every day, every weekend, every night, I was always searching. I was always checking my emails. An alert came up. Who is it? What do they want? Quickly check. And that was my life. And I'm much better now, but it has taken time. And the reason why I'm sharing that is that when I'm looking at the process, when I'm looking at the way that we respond, if we have a template, if we have an automation that tells somebody something and when you're going to get back to them, just like an out of office, we can set something up. So if you have inquiries that always go through to hello at, or inquiries at, or sales at, don't love a sales at email, side note, when it comes through, into those other inboxes, you can have an automation that comes out of there as well that says, thanks for your inquiry. We're currently doing this. We're currently working on this, or we will be back to you within this amount of time. In the meantime, if you want this, let us know. And so it means you can give people guides. You can point people in different directions. If they just want to book a call, do it here. Give them the tools to be able to respond and make decisions quickly, and use AI. Like, use tools that will help you, use tools that will give you the ability to free up time. Now, something that I've started using was actually a client that started using it first. And I was in a meeting with him and this pop-up comes up as I think a lot of people are using all these AI tools for being in meetings, for doing notes after meetings, obviously Copilot, and then there's a whole host of others. Now, my rule of thumb for technology is find something that can do multiple things, and don't always, we don't always have to compromise simplicity for the best of the best, but it has to be good enough to warrant us to add on another piece of technology. Now, what I'm using so it's called Fixer AI, and the client was using it, and he said that it sits in his inbox, and it will help you reply to emails, and it will also sit in your meetings, create summaries, create emails. It's game changer, like absolute game changer. Now, I read some of the content or some of the reviews about Fixer before I signed up. I used it on the free trial. I waited a couple of weeks because I was away and was like, not sure how much I'll use it. And then I got back, and kind of day one, I was like, I already miss it. So I've committed. And what it does is it basically will take the meeting that you've been part of. It will summarize it, which a lot of them do. And then it will give you transcription. Then it writes an email, which sits in your drafts. And then all you have to do is go in and tweak it and then send it. Now, because it's sending messages, you can then see what it can learn from the way that you're communicating. And then it will allow you to, it will learn and then allow you to just get quicker at how you're going to respond. Now, the post meeting summaries don't love at the moment. Like, I don't know if that just takes a bit more time. The way that it replies to emails, like I said, does a draft. If it's a complex email, it will give me two options. If it's something quite quick, especially for the awesome, thanks, I'll do that. Even for rescheduling meetings, it creates a link and then gives options for when you are available in the email link. So it's very clever at doing that. Now, yes, there's loads of others out there. I've used read.ai, I've used otter.ai, and I think they're just all getting better. But finding things that will allow you to be responsive, but also personal, and allow you to personalize them, and then allow the AI tool to keep learning so that you are just getting more effective, is certainly somewhere that I would be exploring if you're not already, as well as the automation. Now, we want to make sure that we avoid the fast but sloppy trap, as I mentioned before. So if we're speeding and we're rushing and it's like quick and this and it's typos and then they've referenced the wrong thing, that is not a great look. It's not going to give them the confidence in what you're going to be doing and how you can do it. So be really mindful of the fact that speed's key, but always make sure that we're double checking details, pricing, names, offers, and where the links are going to be. And as I mentioned before, don't be afraid to quick email back to say, awesome, I'm on this, I'll get it back to you by this time or this date, but make sure you exceed those expectations of whatever you set. So if you say, I'm going to get back to you by end of day tomorrow, get it back to them well before end of day tomorrow. If you think you're going to struggle, then say, I'll make sure it's in your inbox by 9 a.m. the following day. Because the thing that I've always noticed is that I am quick, and I've got time, and I've got schedules, and I've got team, and I've got, support elements. But I noticed myself falling into a trap where I was saying, I'll get it back to you by close of business, or by end of day, or by 4 o'clock. And I would do it on a Friday. Like, so for example, I've had the meeting earlier in the week. I said, look, I'll get it back to you by end of day Friday. What that means is that if anything else happens in my week that just throws me off, I have to get it done before the end of the week on Friday. Now, dealing with different time zones as well means that often my end of day, being in Western Australia, we are 2 or 3 hours behind Eastern states. So if I say by end of day, I have to be really clear, do I mean my end of day or their end of day? And if I mean their end of day, what's the point? Because they're not going to read it on Friday night, probably not. They're not going to read it on Saturday or Sunday. They might read it Sunday night, so they're prepped for Monday. But why don't I just say they're going to have it in their inbox by Monday? So it means if my week gets screwed for some reason, I have a buffer that will allow me to be able to make that time up. Now, I'm not saying we should all be working on weekends, like, before you all, hate on me, but that's how I've done it. So I've switched it so that if I ever say a Friday, I always now say you'll have it in your inbox ready to view Monday, because I just found that sometimes on a Friday, I've got loads of things to try and tie up, which have to be done that day. And they're not going to look at this till Monday morning. So as long as I can send it by Sunday, which I always can, because it'll take me 20 minutes on the weekend to get whatever it is done, then I can get it done. And if I can get it out by Friday, I've exceeded expectations beyond what I thought was possible, beyond what they thought was possible. Now, the one thing I would just caveat with speed, just really quickly, is that I have lots of tools and templates and things already ready to go. So often if I'm going to go away and create a proposal, I could probably get a proposal realistically done sometimes in 20 minutes. Now, if my proposal is a high ticket item, so let's say my proposal is $50,000, $60,000, you don't want me to speak to you and then 20 minutes later send you a proposal for that. You might not want me to send it if it's $1,000. It's all down to perception. It's all down to value based on the people that you're working with. So what I would also then suggest is give yourself a couple of days to get that proposal ready, depending on expectations, depending on requirements. If it's something they have to have by end of day for a report or for a meeting, then obviously by all means, move everything and get it done. But I would then be using a scheduling tool, which will allow me to send an email later as well. So these are just some little hacks. Obviously, I'm saying here, go fast. And I'm saying here, give yourself a couple of days. Go fast in the communication. Make sure you're responsive. Make sure that you are communicative. And if you are doing something in the back end of anything, and this goes for sales, but also anything else, if you're doing anything in the back end, people don't know what you're doing if you're quiet. So you have to tell them. And this I learned in being in managed services. And the rule of thumb being in managed services is that if you're not having to ring the managed service provider or they're not having to ring you and it's very quiet, it means they're doing a really good job, because it means you're not having to call. You're not having to get the printer fixed. You're not having to get someone's password reset. You're not having to call because something's gone wrong. And we're not having to call to check on something else that we may have seen on our side. It means that things are going really well. But what I found was that we'd get to the end of the contract. They're like, we just don't think we need you guys. Like, it's so quiet. This is happening. This isn't happening. I think we're going to be good for now. And what happens is that we haven't done a good enough job of explaining what we've done while we've been quiet. And while we've been quiet, we've been maintaining and working so that it is quiet. Because when we first started, it was very noisy. So be mindful of that as you go through the process. If you're working with somebody and it's you're providing a service and it's on in the back end, but they are like, oh, this is great and it's really quiet and maybe we don't actually need it. Be mindful of what you're telling people and how you're sharing. And that links back into if I'm working away, doing all my research and getting things done, and someone's like, where's that information? What are they doing? I haven't heard from them in a week. That's going to come back to feeling like they're out of control or that they're not sure what's going to happen next. And that leads to uncertainty. And then uncertainty leads to then people questioning as to whether we should or shouldn't be doing this with you or that chosen product or service. So speed kills deals. If you are too slow, be fast and get people, communicate with people, be responsive, but be responsive in a way that allows you to give yourself a bit more time where you need. Remember to double check everything. And if you are losing deals to competitors or you're getting an inquiry and you're losing opportunities, have a look at how long each thing has taken you and how much communication you've given in the meantime. Have you shared when you'll get something and how you'll follow up and when you'll follow up and when they can expect to hear something and how long it's going to take you in the back end? Because if you're doing something great, but they don't know about it, then they're going to really be really appreciative when they do. So quick episode. I know I talk really fast, so I hope you managed to grab all of that in. It's something that is super relevant. It's happened, like I said, just happened this morning. I'll pop in the show notes the fixer.ai link and you can go and grab the free trial and check it out for yourself. Like I said, it's been an absolute game changer for me, and some of the reviews that I read shared about about saving over an hour a day. And, for, I think it's $50 a month for that. It's definitely worth the investment for me anyway, and has been so far. So I'll pop that in there. But go forth, have a wonderful week of selling, and I wish you all the success for the week, the month, and the quarter.